It is Sunday school. So, and here we've got the Lust card from the Thoth Tarot, which is the Leo card and the Hebrew letter Tet. But in the Thoth deck, and in Tarot of Ceremonial Magic also, and in other modern decks, the key number of strength or lust has returned to the original Tarot of Marseille sequence, which places it in the 11th position in the sequence of tarot trumps. Now, admittedly, that's in the Hebrew alphabet sequence, that's a little out of whack. As a matter of fact, the 11th Hebrew letter sequence would make it the Justice card. And being right in the middle of the Hebrew letter sequence, that makes sense too. But also, the Justice card has returned to the 8th position, wherein, like the Golden Dawn deck and everything else, in other words, 8 and 11 have been returned to the original Tarot of Marseille sequence. And sometimes that's hard for us to grasp, especially if we are dedicated to sort of modern assignments of Hebrew letters to cards and things like that. So people always say, whoa, that's a curious thing, the switching of 8 and 11. Now, 11 here, there we go. The Lust card is a very special card. Not only is it the Beast in Babylon card, but it's a very important horizontal path on the Tree of Life, the one that goes from 2 to from 5 to 4. It's the middle horizontal path on the Tree of Life. Crowley said somewhere, and I'm paraphrasing, that his incarnation, or his incarnation as his initiatory role as the Beast, activated that path, the path of Tet, the horizontal path on the universal Tree of Life, vis-a-vis the precession of the equinoxes or the sequence of Aeon change. Why am I telling you all of this on Sunday school? Well, I'd like to share with you a Sunday school message. If you were not at Noticon, you missed this section of my talk. And if you are not a Thelemite or familiar with the Book of the Law or things like that, then this may be kind of totally fresh and new for you. But I'm going to give it a shot. Okay. The theme for Noticon was from Gold Forged Steel, which is a little quote from the 3rd chapter of the Book of the Law. Now, the 3rd chapter of the Book of the Law is the chapter that freaks most people out when they first read it, and may freak you out for forever if you never can grasp kind of what it might actually be about. Because it's the wild and crazy Horus the Avenger of his murdered godfather Osiris. But Horus is two kinds of Horus. Horus is not alone. Horus operates in partnership with his brother Harpocrates, who is, both of them are pictured here. There's Harpocrates standing in front like kind of a grown-up baby there, with his finger in his to his lips, being silent there. And then there's the wild and crazy, vengeful, violent brother, Horus. So when you talk about Horus, you're talking about the Horus brothers. Okay, if you want to, if they're both the sun, one is the radiating force of the sun, and the other is the gravitational, the centripetal and the centrifugal forces of nuclear, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Here's that chapter from Gold Forged Steel. Be ready, from gold forged steel, be ready to fly or to smite. Well, I'll start even before that. There cometh a rich man from the west, who shall pour his gold upon thee. Now that, if I may venture a comment, that sounds like one of the sections of the Book of the Law that's speaking to Crowley personally, rather than we need to first jump to a cosmic thing, because there's many places in the Book of the Law where Aiwass is responding to Crowley's own personal thoughts and stuff. There cometh a rich man from the west, who shall pour his gold upon thee. From gold forge steel. Be ready to fly or to smite. Remember, this is in 1904, before World War I, before World War II. But your holy place shall be untouched throughout the centuries, though with fire and sword it be burnt down and shattered. Yet an invisible house there standeth, and shall stand, until the fall of the great equinox, when Hrumachis shall arise, and the double-wanded one assume my throne and place. Another prophet shall arise, and bring fresh fever from the skies. Another woman shall awake the lust and worship of the snake. Another soul of God and beast shall mingle in the globed priest. Another sacrifice shall stain the tomb. Another king shall reign, and blessing no longer be poured to the hawk-headed mystical Lord. I'm now going to share what a small section of what I said at Noticon. Now that thy holy place, Crowley elsewhere and everywhere refers to that as Boleskine House in Scotland, which has been burned down and is being restored even at this moment. And all of us can help contribute to that heroic, historic effort. Now I'm sure many of us are very excited and inspired by the heroic restoration project currently taking place with Boleskine House in Scotland, and can understandably point to the prophetic implications of the first part of this verse. Crowley certainly does in his comment on this verse. But it's the next part of the verse that I want to focus on just for a moment. The part that talks about the fall of the great equinox. When Hrumachis shall arise, and the double-wanded one assume my throne and place. Another prophet shall arise and bring fresh fever from the skies. Another woman shall awake the lust and worship of the snake. Another soul of God and beast shall mingle in the globed priest. Another sacrifice shall stain the tomb. Another king shall reign, and blessing no longer be poured to the hawk-headed mystical Lord. It is with pure, unquote from the Book of the Law, it is with pure alchemical panache that new aeons hatch from eggs which are incubated in the compost pile heat generated by the decomposition of the putrefying shells of the magical forms and formulae of the previous aeon. Are you wrapping your alchemical brains around that? I'll say it again. It is with pure alchemical panache that new aeons hatch from eggs which are incubated in the compost pile heat generated by the decomposition of the putrefying shells of the magical forms and formulae of the previous aeon. The Aeon of Osiris was incubated by the warmth of the decaying compost pile of Isis. The Aeon of Horus was incubated by the warmth of the corrupted and decaying formula of Osiris. And the next Aeon, which Crowley just told us will be that of Frumachis, will inevitably be incubated by the warmth of the compost pile cauldron of the corrupted and decaying elements of the Aeon of Horus. And when will that egg of the next Aeon hatch? Crowley tells it, quote, "It may be 100 or 10,000 years from now, for the computation of time is not here as there." I believe he wrote that comment about 103 years ago. Now, Crowley also wrote in his comment on this verse, quote, "It may be presumptuous to predict any details concerning the next Aeon after this," unquote. And I'm certainly not going to presume to do that either. But I do need to apply things to myself, personally. So I need to ask myself this: where does my degree of acceptance of the law of Thelema place me in this transitional phase of Aeon change? What is my Aeon of Horus duty? What is my Aeon of Horus job? What role am I to play? Where am I in this revolution? Am I at the very beginning of my own personal fall of the Aeon of Osiris? Am I right in the middle of a violent and brutal tearing down phase of the revolution? Is my role at this stage that of the enraged shock trooper who must root from my heart the invasive weeds of old bullshit programming of the old Aeon? Am I still at the Lord of the Flies stage of my Thelemic awakening, where my job is to continue to lash out with unrestrained rage against the last vestiges of the zombie army of the decaying Osirian formula? Because if I am, and if you still are, a Thelemite at that stage, we'll both find plenty of justification in that third chapter. If, on the other hand, you now realize in your HGA-activated heart that you have worked through that phase of the revolution, if you now realize in your HGA-activated heart that the crowned and conquering child is now duly and truly, solidly seated on the throne of the East, then perhaps it is now time to promote yourself from being a shock troop disciple of the Aeon of Horus to being an adept of the Aeon of Horus. The disciples of an Aeon struggle to cast out the corrupted vestiges of the previous Aeon and manifest within themselves the magical dynamics and the formula of the new Aeon. But once having done so, the adepts of the Aeon are now well armed to prepare the way for the dawning of the Aeon to follow. And in this case, Hrumacus. And who is Hrumacus? Crowley tells us, quote, Hrumacus is the dawning sun. He therefore symbolizes any new course of event. The double-wanded one is Themaist, of dual form, Themas and Themat, whom the Greeks derived their Themis, goddess of justice. Now in the Golden Dawn, Themast is the hegemon. This is Crowley talking. This is still Crowley's quote. Themast is the hegemon who bears the mitre-headed scepter, like that of Joshua in the Royal Arts degree of Freemasonry. He is the third officer in rank. You see a pattern here. He is the third officer in rank in the neophyte ritual of the Golden Dawn, following Horus as Horus follows Osiris. He can then assume the throne in place of the ruler of the temple when the equinox of Horus comes to the end. Crowley continues, following him, Horus, will arise the equinox of Ma, M-A, the goddess of justice. It may be 100 or 10,000 years from now, for the computation of time is not here as there. Here's the duty. Strength will prepare the reign of justice. We should, quoting Crowley, we should begin already, as I deem to regard this justice as the ideal, whose way we should make ready by virtue of our force and fire. I'm going to repeat it. We should begin already, as I deem to regard this justice as the ideal whose way we should make ready by virtue of our force and fire, unquote. By we, I believe Crowley means the adepts of the Aeon of Horus, whose duty is to regard justice as the ideal and to make ready by our force and fire. As a Thelemite, I must now ask myself, am I at the stage of my spiritual awakening where it is still necessary for me to use my disciple of Horus force and fire to break free from the binding chains of the old Osirian formula that still bind me? Or is Horus now firmly enthroned in me? And am I now ready to accept the adept of Thelema's duty and, quote, regard justice as the ideal, and to make ready by my force and fire the coming age? Now, Thelemites come in all shapes and sizes, and each of us with our own unique karmic assets and liabilities. Each of us with our own lessons to learn and lessons to teach. Each of us functioning in accordance with our own private level of understanding. No two Thelemites think alike, nor should we be expected to. Both the disciple of the Aeon of Horus and the adept of the Aeon of Horus are Thelemites, each possessing their own self-seized rights and privileges. If we disagree on things concerning the world around us, that's to be expected. During my talk at the previous Notacon to this one, I mentioned what I considered a disturbing trend among some racist extremists to identify their movement with Thelema. I even had a poster that I posted on the screen that says, with Lon's face as Uncle Sam, going, "Lon wants you to stop acting like a Nazi." During my talk at the last Notacon, I mentioned what I considered a disturbing trend among some racist extremists to identify their movement with Thelema. Some of my Thelemite siblings teased me and called me S.J.W. DuQuette. Now, I'm such an old fart that I didn't know what SJW meant, and I had to look it up. I had to Google it. Social justice warrior. Fuck yeah, I'm a social justice warrior. Constance wrote something I want to share with you right now, if I can find where I just put it. And I shared this to end my talk. Justice is not punishment for errors committed. Justice is not compromise where everyone loses. Justice is when everybody wins. If this seems like a difficult concept, well, that's what an Aeon change is for. A change in consciousness. Love is a law, love under will. And my final slide, I'm not much of a technical guy, okay, but I could get my PowerPoint presentation to show this card, the Aeon card, dissolving into this one. That's Sunday school for today. Continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.